soon as it loads. All right, so we're on. We're good for recording. So I'm going to share my screen just for a second here so that you can see our agenda. And should come in nice and full there. Oh. Stop my music. All right, so this morning we're getting started just a little bit after 9. Welcome everybody. Welcome Barry, welcome Matt, some of my other friends from St. Anne's, and certainly all the parents. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm really excited about today. Hopefully this is a time my goal for today is for this to be a time that we can hear a couple stories from some of our 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade parents, and then also a time to share and swap good ideas, share resources, commiserate, let some steam out, laugh, whatever comes to us this morning. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. We're going to have our storytellers today, and thank you for being here, are from the 8th grade. And that tells me, Valerie, do you mind admitting those folks for me, please? Thank you. Our storytellers today are from the 8th grade, Miss Tiffany Polk. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. From 7th grade, and she kind of also represents 6th grade. She has 2 children in the middle school and 1 in lower school. Lori Housey. Tiffany has a middle schooler, an 8th grader, and also a child in the lower school. Will Robinson's here from 6th grade. He also has someone in all 3 divisions. He has primary school, lower school, and middle school. And then Jeremy Edwards has kids as a son in 5th grade, and also someone in the lower school. Really excited about you guys being here. Thank you for putting yourselves out there and being willing to share a little bit of what goes on in your homebound learning environment. So that's our agenda for today, and then we'll have a little discussion and sharing. I put myself down as moderating. I'm not sure if that'll be necessary, or we'll see how we'll go. And kind of a natural thing with this is we stay in the mute stage, generally speaking, and if you have something to say, I'll notice that, because you'll come out of mute and wait, or you can put your name in the chat box that says that you'd like to add something. Certainly, if you have questions and you'd rather just type them, you can put them in the chat box. We'll go from there. I think we'll save our questions for after each person has a chance to tell their stories. They're really quick. There should be a lot of time for discussion. So I'm going to stop presenting now and pop back into the pop back in. Okay. All right. Now I just need a thumbs up. I think I'm out of presenting mode. Yes, I am. All right. Thank you. All right. Excellent. I'm trying a new spotlight mode, and should help us with our speakers. I was like, oh, I didn't ask anyone to make a name tag. Plus, it would be really awkward to hold your name like this. Would be weird. So I'm going to introduce you to them now. Okay. So first, we will have Tiffany Polk from 8th grade, and just share a story with us. So, Tiffany, you want to?
Sure, absolutely. My audio is clear. I work from home a lot, and sometimes my bandwidth isn't the issue, but audio is the issue. So if anybody wants to just give me a hand signal, I can throw my headphones on and it'll fix the audio problem. So it's been, for us, obviously, an unprecedented time, like it's been for everyone. We, as Jill said, have an 8th grader, Jaren, who's 14, and we have an 8-year-old, Jackson, who's 3rd grader. And I think that if I were to try to sum it up in really sublime language, it's the tale of 2 cities. I think that the middle schooler is typical middle school, teenage, hormones, sleepy, tired, really needed the active engagement of coming in to motivate him to the minimum viable product level, much less to soar. So we really tried to work with him to figure out how do we insert the motivation factor, right? And keep it interesting. But at the same time, really reinforce the idea for him that this is not a snow day. So that's definitely been an issue. On the flip side, I would say that, just for context, I know this is middle school. The 8-year-old is super excited to get on his Zoom calls in the morning. He loves to see his friends. And actually is heartbroken that he's not going to school every day. So cries at least 3 times a week about how he hates Corona and he's tired of all this and he just wants it to be over. So it's been an interesting household. I would say, in the idea of the whole notion of great things come in threes, I think there's been 3 things that we've learned so far that we've been trying to focus on. I think that the combination of sync and asynchronous learning is really, really important. And so for us, especially for Jaron, we really reinforced to him that the optional study halls, the sessions with his advisory are not optional. You have to go. You have to be a part of the engagement of seeing people, even if you're the only one in the room, which he abhors. Like, I'm the only one there. Why do I have to go? You have to go because you need that in order to reinforce for you that this situation is not as dire and different as you think it is. So that would be number 1. I think number 2 is, again, I know we're all struggling with this, but just as much as you can try to push adherence to a schedule is really, really important. So trying to put some rigor and some boundaries around what time these kids go to bed, what time and what they do in between. As crazy as that is when you've got your own day job like I do, I'm a managing director at JP Morgan. I have a team of people that I'm trying to manage right now all over the globe. I'm on Zoom calls from 6:30 in the morning till 4 or 5, 6 o'clock at night. Like, it's crazy, but I try to in the middle go run in and check up and say, hey, what are you doing? Blah, 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 and try to adhere some rigor to the schedule. I think third, and this is where it gets to be a bit nuanced, right? Trying to balance the way in which we used to be on him constantly to get it done and try to soften it a little bit, right? So, this is tough for him, and I think it's probably tough for a lot of them. The feeling of disconnect, and if I'm honest, he already had a tendency to isolation, and so this just really capitalizes on that. And I think trying to be the softer side of the parent a lot more often and not just be the person who's hard and on him and trying to get him to get it together. I think I've learned, especially over the last 2 weeks, is really important because the positivity actually gets him to turn a corner faster than just trying to constantly be on him in a way that really didn't matter as much when we were in normal circumstances and he was going into school every day. So that's kind of my story, my pitch. That's what I've seen so far. There's a billion other things I'm sure I could share with you that I don't remember because it kind of goes out every day. But engage in any kind of Q&A and dialogue in a little bit.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Tiffany. Appreciate that. Appreciate your insight there and your stories. Okay, so we'll shift to Lori. I couldn't see. Were you able to come on?
I was. Yeah, I had to click get out. Am I there?
I brought you back in. I just couldn't see you on my screen. So so you go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, similarly, I have 3 kids at St. Anne's, so we also straddle between lower school and middle school. But I think that for me, or for us, Luke, there's no question, Tiffany, I can totally relate to this self-isolation being kind of more the problem. But Luke is a really great student in terms of being very motivated. He's the kid that's up at 7 a.m. getting a shower, getting online and getting his work done, sometimes just to check it off, to have it, done. But if you gave him the choice between, a book and his guitar and getting online and trying to socialize with kids, he's going to go for the book and the guitar. So for me, I think that I really struggled at the beginning with making sure he had social stimulation. And I think that that's been answered to some degree with having online learning and, and those classroom settings. I know he too has complained saying, I'm alone in this, you know, I go on and there's, you know, there aren't any other kids on there. And we're saying, well, you know, maybe today there will be, so try it again. He's done a good job just naturally of finding those avenues himself. I think at the beginning, I, as mom, was sitting there saying, I have to come up with these things for him. But I think that, like anything, his growth has come organically to him. I can't force my way of being social. I can't make him get on and do a Zoom chat with friends, but he has found his own kind of groove. And sometimes it's collaborating in the morning with other friends on homework that maybe he did at 7 a.m., but they're just starting at 9 a.m. And he said to me the other day, it's just working with them and reviewing the answers that sometimes kind of answers that social, you know, need. I think that, you know, I asked Luke to reflect on his experience for me, and some interesting things came out of our conversation earlier this morning, where he still craves that interaction. So, you know, I know that that's something that will continue to develop, and I know his teachers are working really hard on creating those opportunities too. So, you know, I think that it's just an interesting time that we're all living in, and not everybody, my kids aren't gamers, so they're not getting onto the Fortnites or whatever of the world to find that social stimulation. They're, you know, basketball players and run around the neighborhood with friends that they no longer can run with. So I think I found my fourth grader yesterday said, I was playing catch with my buddy on the computer. I said, how did you play catch? He goes, well, I was using a foam ball, Mom. I said, what does that mean, foam ball? He said, well, I was throwing it at the computer and he was pretending to catch it. So sometimes we're getting a little too creative, and I don't really need that kind of, you know, thing happening to our computers. But, you know, I think for us, Luke's doing a good job in figuring out his own groove, and I have to trust him in that, even though Jill knows I was terribly paranoid at the beginning of this, of saying, I need for him to have that social element, but somehow he's finding it himself. So.
All right.
Okay, you gotta let me be.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Will. All right. So Will Robinson is a 6th grade parent, and also has someone in lower and primary. And I think we just all might have just met a little bit of Greta there for a second.
Yeah, I mean, the Robinson household is a mess. We are just like everyone. We are working at it to various degrees of success. I can actually even hear Greta crying right now in the background, and part of that's also because my wife, she actually she's a healthcare professional. She's a midwife, and she is. Yes, please help. Please help. Thanks, Luke. So that's basically how my days go. She's at the hospital today for 12 hours and then tomorrow for 12 hours. So I'm doing a lot of single parenting throughout the week. So what that's actually taught me, and I think this is probably the most important. I think he is going to let you. He is going to let you. I can hear him. Go ahead. This is actually not staged. This is not planned for to illustrate sort of the day-to-day challenges. I think the biggest thing that for our family, which I've really impressed upon my wife Lindsay, is that we have to be incredibly forgiving of ourselves and of each other during these sorts of times. We have to give each other so much grace. I mean, that's sort of I get out of bed every single day promising to give grace to other people, but also especially myself. So a lot of it has just been trying to figure things out as sort of as we go, and being okay with change. And some days maybe aren't great. So I think that's been my big sort of lesson. I have 3 kids. They're all very different. Greta, as you can see, she needs lots of attention in a way that my older children don't. My oldest child in the 6th grade needs very little. Like he can, sort of similar to Lori's Luke, like he will get out of bed and get his things done. He's super excited to take advantage of all the incredible hard work that the middle school teachers are doing. And I can tell you, as a teacher, it takes like I'm working twice as hard as I did before, and I think I worked pretty hard before, just to try to deliver the best we can deliver to our students. So I just want to thank the middle school teachers for that. My younger son needs a lot more. He needs a lot more attention. So I think in the last few okay, please, you have to let me, please. No, just.
We will.
Yeah, no. Just the one last point is that just most recently, I realized I had to sit down with I'm very hands off as a parent on the academic side, and I realized I had to sit down with my 4th grader and just sort of go throughout the day and create the list. This is just like by accident. I have this in front of me, sort of create the list and have him sort of check things off, because I think he needs that now in a ways that he absolutely did not need that when he was going to school every day. So that's been a small success. Sorry about that, everyone.
That's great. I was dying to just say, hey, we can swap. That's part of something I've learned, is we're really flexible. We just slide in and out of things how we need to. We could have put a pin in it and held on to it. So thank you all. And please feel free to go take care of business and come back.
I might
or don't come back. It's up to you. Okay. Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Will. Okay. And then that was 6th grade. And so we'll go to 5th grade now. And that's Jeremy Edwards. And
sure. Hi, everybody. I similar to other folks, 5th, 3rd, and 1st grader. So very different ages and needs, and also very different personalities, like all of our kids. I think when I think of Marcus, and I'll probably connect a little bit to what I'm experiencing as a teacher and advisor too. But my biggest challenge, found the house that I had always dreamed of with an open floor plan, and now there's 5 Zoom calls that need to take place in one giant space at the same time. So that's been a little bit insane. And Marcus has done a lot of his work in his room with a Chromebook, and that's been really hard for me, because my general belief was I would never have my kid at this age, especially, sit alone in his room with his computer. So how is that working, and what is that like? Because at many parts of the day, I feel like I have no choice. And I think that it's been hard because he just literally goes into this computer world, and it's like he puts the headphones on and he's all in, and well, I can see where he's been and what he's been doing. It's and he's not been doing work the whole time, certainly. I can just, he comes out of a trance. He's working hard, and I appreciate that. But it is, the amount of time that to get their work done and to socialize and everything else that they're in front of the screen is just extraordinary on some days. And so, most of my, any advice I would have would be things either that I have it's taken me a month to figure out, or I feel like I should be doing, but I'm not doing. But I know that this is what's needed. I think one piece is I post a schedule. I think that's helpful. And days when I don't post the schedule of the day, the kids are different. I can feel like it's a little bit different, or maybe it's just I feel different because I need to see it visually. But with everybody having such a different schedule, I think it's really helpful. The kids are completely different when I get them outside before 10 or 11 than when I don't. And I think that's the balancing act for this computer time. If for any of my kids, but probably for my oldest, for Marcus the most, if I don't get him outside before lunch, I mean, it's rough. It's going to be a rough afternoon and evening. And the likelihood that he's going to have a meltdown at some point. His frustration tolerance level is going to be so different. So the exercise, and I'm distinguishing a little bit between outside and exercise. So I think both just have to happen as soon as humanly possible, even when the weather is not great. And even though all my kids love sports, there are times where they get, even Marcus probably more than ever, when Marcus gets into the computer, then it's literally like dragging him away to get him to do something that of course he'll have fun when he's outside, but it's that process of getting him there. So for me, that insistence it's a completely different day when that happens. And then I think the three other quick things. One related is just the number of hugs I give. I'm starting to almost quantify it just to make sure that one of them's not being left out there. And I think that one of the things I realized, I just realized this week after, again, whatever it's been, a month, that I'm spending a lot of time with the kids. But that doesn't mean necessarily I'm spending quality one-on-one time giving an individual kid of mine what they need, or being there to hear, really listen to them. So what I'm wanting to do more of, and I haven't done the way I want to so far, is the difference between like one-on-one time. So, and I guess maybe it's, again, obvious to everybody, but I don't think it really hit me until recently that I was like, you know what, I get to talk to each of my kids more than I ever do, which I love. But am I really listening to them? Do they feel like they can talk in front of their brothers what they want to say? So I'm trying to get, my plan is to do what I did at the end of the week, which is take walks with them, even in bad weather. And then the last thing is choice and control. I think that I feel like no matter how old my kids are, that's usually sometimes their greatest frustration in life on a day-to-day basis is, I'm so tired of being told where to go and what to do. And that's different from my, 7, 9, 10-year-old, but that's the life of a kid. And now I feel it's on steroids. So I have no say or control of any aspect of my life. And I am so frustrated with this and so sick of it. So I try to give them as much choice and control within reason. And I usually do it by just rotating with my kids. So Monday night is documentary night. So one kid's rotation, they get to choose what we watch that evening. And Tuesday's game night, it's Shorty over here. It's his choice. Austin gets to choose what game we're playing that night. And the meal time, each kid gets to rotate choices on what we're making. So trying to give as much choice and control, even if it's token in so many ways. And I'm trying to think of what that might look like for a 7th and 8th grader that is meaningful, because something meaningful choice for a 4th grader or 3rd grader it's a lot easier to make their choices, get them excited about having some power. But I think that the more I'm going to continue to try and be creative and think of ways to give them some power, choice, and control back, because I think they feel like they have less than ever, is just my vantage point.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. I got to get out of pinning there. There we go. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for sharing. If folks have questions or you want to add, I can think of a couple things. One, as I'm watching this, I'm like, we've talked a lot about boys. Maybe we have some daughters that might have some things going on. Or as Jeremy was saying, maybe that some of you have ideas about how you're giving your kids choice, or how you're, encouraging them to be outside, or things that have worked, or something that hasn't, or you just have a question that you want. We have 23 folks on here who can come together and help each other. So I'm gonna check the chat here because there might be something in there. Yeah, no, okay. Anybody have something that they want to add or spark the thought based on what one of our folks asked, or you have a clarifying question for either Tiffany, Lori, Will, or Jeremy, or somebody else, Mr. Davis, myself. This is called wait time in the education world. So we'll wait.
I can piggyback on Jeremy's just because I find it kind of interesting. We do really similar, our program here. I think our choices, because we have older children, are grander. So we don't really control any of it, but I actually, this is, my mind has to work with that system too. At the beginning of the week, they are given 2 little sheets of paper and they're assigned their day, their days. So they each get 2 days. Mom and dad get another one. But in that day, they get to choose the meal. But if they want to cook the meal in its entirety, fantastic. Today is brisket. So Mike and Luke have been up since 6 a.m. Working on this together. Yeah, I know. But they're doing this. They're creating the rub and everything. They'll partner up on this one. But Luke later today will choose. We won't be able to go on a hike today because they'll be by the smoker. But I'm sure that he'll have some sort of outdoor activity. He'll choose a game later today. And if he wants to pop in a movie, he gets to choose our day. And of course it works on a school day around our work day. So their activity part of things really can't start until after that school day is done. But, I think that the choices are just a little grander. We have less control over, what category it fits in, but we've enjoyed that. And the kids, I think, have gotten a lot out of having, those things to look forward to, for lack of a better.
Thank you.
I always look for things for my kids to glom onto. One of the things that we started yesterday is a thing that's called the adventure book. You'd have to look it up. Yesterday, what you do is you scratch off an activity for the day. I have to make sure that I have the name of it correct, but you scratch off your activity and do something as a family. It'll tell you if it, costs money, or if it needs supplies, or if it's indoor or outdoor. But so it's called the Adventure Challenge. And yesterday we had to create a domino, essentially. We took out every single book we have all these classics that came out of our study, and we took out balls, and we took out all the paper towel reams that we had in the house, and we created, starting from the basement stairs around our pool table in the basement, a pretty elaborate domino together. It said 30 to 60 minutes. It took about 2 hours, but it was a heck of a lot of fun, and I highly recommend. I think the book is now on back order because there's a lot of families like us that are looking for creative things to do, but it got us working as a team. It got us yelling at each other as a team. I'm just kidding, but we had fun doing it. So I think just finding avenues where you can do things together and be collaborative and look at the fun that we can have at a time where you're not feeling very fun.
I think for those of us that tend to be very type A and rigid and want things to be extremely extremely controlled, have to let go of that a bit. So if I think about what you asked, Jill, about what doesn't work is the hype on rigidity and repeatability. So what I had to realize over the past, 4 to 6 weeks is that as much as I would like each day to look pretty much the same every day, and for me to go to bed feeling like it was a wash, rinse, repeat, and that there's this somehow trend line of us getting better and better at repeatability, like that's just not the game we're playing. And so, you got to let that go, kind of put that on the shelf and be willing to wake up and entertain where it is. Take your kids where they are, take the moment where it is, and try to make incremental progress where it's possible. But this isn't the kind of situation that necessarily lends itself to refinement the way that I think some of us are used to. So I would just say, in the spirit of what doesn't work, just trying to be super controlled and super tight with your plan of action, just for me has more frustration rather than better outcomes.
Thanks.
I know a very small thing that's been helpful, especially at times when I'm working or on a call or something, and I know that kids are going to be on their own, especially younger ones, but is just the use of timers, somewhat obvious, and sometimes they can increase anxiety for everyone, but helps with some of my kids just understanding how much time has passed, how much time they've actually spent on this. And hopefully without rushing through work, it makes a big difference for them to get certain pieces done. So they estimate how long it's going to take to finish this. They set the timer. Tomato timer is the easiest app. But I mean, it could be obviously we can set timers on anything. So I just find that the use of timers really, really helpful especially when I know that I can't be there physically to keep them on point.
Yeah. Barry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just curious what us adults have learned about ourselves during this time. We heard from Will say about giving himself permission to not have to be, not have to have everything under control or to be perfect. I'm just curious from other people. I know that I've definitely learned some things about me. I'm just curious if folks are interested in sharing anything that they've learned about themselves during this strange time.
Fatigue
So-
has the ability to creep in ways that you never thought possible. I just never knew I could get as tired as I get. I think that the way in which mental fatigue affects you, I just really had no idea the degree to which that was possible and the respect that you have to have for that as a person so that you can continue to walk through life. I think that we've talked a lot about stress over the years and the effects of stress. I think that this situation shows how true that is, and just the care with which you have to give your personal self, especially in a time like this, is just critical.
One of the things that I have found is that I think I kind of crave reaching out and having conversations with other people in other places, just so I can hear how they're managing. Like whether it's talking to colleagues in other parts of the country, or just hearing what other people are doing at the same time, I guess, because then it gives it gives me a way to gauge whether or not what I'm really feeling about what I'm doing is is kind of moving in the right direction. I think because we end up being isolated, or for me, because I end up being isolated, you know, you're not sure if you know, if the path that you're taking or the decision that you're making, you know, I just want to hear more about, you know, folks say, yeah, that's we're doing something similar. I can go, okay, well, at least two people are screwing it up if we're screwing it up. But so anyway, just I just seek out more people, I think, now than I did before.
For a bit. Can you go back and start over?
I'm sorry, Jill, what did you say? I don't see Jill.
Victoria, I really appreciate what you wrote, because I feel similarly often, and I think and it's been one of the more refreshing. One of the things I most appreciate about all of the calls we've had as a faculty in the middle school have been around what are we really trying to accomplish, and you know, very in the narrow ways, each of us looking at very specific goals that we have and skills that we're trying to continue to develop and foster, but then stepping back and really looking at the big picture. And when I talk to a lot of my friends who work at other schools and what they're struggling with, I think I'm really appreciative of our approach. And so for me as a parent, I guess what I'm trying to say is just when we step back and it is mid-June, what do we most want to have happen for our kids in 8 to 10 weeks, you know? And you know, for me, it's gonna be it's going to be the life lessons. It's almost like trying to figure out as a parent, like, this is an opportunity for me to reinforce things like the most core values that I really that matter the most to me in developing in my middle school son, and how can I use this block of time. And so for my oldest son, Marcus is, you know, despite living in a house where I'm obsessed with growth mindset, can't seem to even, he's about as anti-growth mindset as a person could be. And so that's the only thing that I want as a parent, is if he could somehow improve in that particular area. Because all schools and all teachers are going to be in a similar boat next fall, and we'll get everybody back to where they need to be. We'll catch them up in different areas. And so I think we as teachers feel really confident about that. So I'm lucky enough to have that lens. So then it's like, okay, they're not going to remember, you know, no kid's going to remember anything about the Protestant Reformation that I'm teaching them right now. Like, what they're going to take away from this block of time is, you know, their experiences at home with their family. And so I'm trying to not take myself or as seriously as sometimes I might do. And you know, Will mentioned forgiving ourselves, and you know, it's not that we're not having standards for our kids or anything like that, but it's the big picture. What do we, you know, what really matters is their continued social emotional growth, not necessarily their, you know, any detailed concrete academic skill. We will catch them back up next fall.
Hey,
Sorry. Thank you. I'm having technical difficulties today. I've not had any since we've started this, so I guess it was about time for it to happen. And I just put a note in the chat. We'll continue here if you want to stay. If someone needs to leave, you can. My storytellers today, if that includes you, thank you for being here. But if you have something else to go to, please feel free to do that. And also, please feel free to stay. We have a good conversation going here. I apologize. I've just missed some of it. I can't wait to listen to the recording so I can hear what I missed. Thanks for jumping in. So I don't want to end things here. Anybody have something to add here? Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Hey, everybody. I would just like to, good morning, first of all. I hope everybody.
Good morning to you, too.
Very much. I'm here with Tiffany. I just wanted to take a little bit of Barry's commentary and challenge on, because I think it was really responsible and reasonable, because obviously this is a school-based chat about kids, and one of the things that I think Barry alluded to, which I highly respect and appreciate, is the adult component, which I think we're so mono-focused on making sure these kids get a wonderful experience and that we aren't screwing up, which Jeremy alluded to and Barry alluded to, and that we aren't damaging them in some way that somehow put them in a challenging perspective down the road. But I think one thing that is important to respect in thinking about what Barry said is one of the things you lose with this is you lose your personal time in terms of if you're a single parent home, or if you're a multi-parent home, or if you have more than just the parents living there and you have other families living there, the ability to just be like, this is our time, or this is the time when we would normally sit around talking about anything from what we do as a couple to, how we feel about the kids or how we're going to co-parent. Like those times are gone because they're around at all times. At some point, somebody's running in, somebody wants your time, they want your attention. And so finding time, as Barry pointed out, that kind of reaching out component where you can talk to other people and even talk to each other, which you can't do as much in the home, can be a challenge. I have a standing meeting with my three closest friends in the world, and we get together on a monthly basis pre-corona. Every month we have a monthly conference call the first Thursday of every month where we sit down for 2 hours on a chat and we just talk about these types of things. We sit, do adult things, we have conversation. Somebody might smoke a cigar, we might, but we have conversations where we just catch up and just kind of like relax. And we had an impromptu one this past Thursday, even though we had our normal monthly call where we were just like needing to unwind and talk about like, how are you dealing with your parenting and how are your kids acting and what's going on? And so, and I know Tiffany had a similar meeting herself with some of her female friends just a few days ago. So like those times to reach out. So I would recommend two things I was going to say is if there's a way you can have a Zoom chat of your own with just adults with whom you are close, to do exactly what Barry alluded to, we would heavily recommend that. I think your psychological and spiritual health just gets lifted so much if you have that opportunity, whether you talk about Corona, you talk about whatever else, those things are critically important. If you have time as a couple, to steal away to an in-house date and close the door and watch a movie, just two of you, and do the things that you might have normally done, take away from you from a Corona perspective. Those things are critical as well. And then from an inclusive standpoint, from a kid's perspective, things that we have been doing that Tiffany do for months that we never found the time and space to do was she had always been like, I would like to come home and eat family dinner and we all get together, but you try for like a few days and then it just falls apart. So now what we have been able to agree on is Sunday is family dinner time. So Sunday, everybody cook the food. And we have a set time, and then we take showers, and then we dress up, and we go down on Sunday, and we take a picture. We take a group picture, and then we sit down and we talk about what's going on, and it has been a beautiful reconnect of family time. I know Jeremy talked about this as well, and Lori talked about like how the boys are using the smoker today. Like it's a great reconnect to just like detox, no TV on, no phones allowed, just kind of like reconnect on how everybody's feeling and breathe and laugh and just talk about what we're going to get accomplished not in terms of work, but just as a family what we would like to do now that we're faced with this situation and have real family time. So those three things I would say is time with friends, time with if you have someone significant other, if you can make time to carve that time out for yourself, and then to carve specific family time where you as a family, which everyone is kind of doing anyway, but without all of the pressures of, well, we've got to maximize our time because we're so tired. It's like, let's not talk about like whether or not you did it on time or whether or not you turned it in on time or whether or not I'm mad at you because I asked you to do it and you didn't do it. So now the little time we have left together, because we see each other all the time, you know, it's like any child, you know, so that would be my answer.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I put a couple resources in the chat box. If you can go there, open up the chat. If you're not sure, it's up in the upper right-hand corner. It looks like a comment bubble up there. And Castle is a social emotional site that we use. There's 2 webinars on there. One, a guy, Dr. Mark Brackett's out of Yale University. That's really good. It's something I shared with teachers a while back. It's being your best self during this time. And then the other one, there are a lot of good webinars, but these 2 specifically are at the top of the list there. One's about home and kids, and they're not short. They're a little bit longer for parents and kids. I might suggest the second one or the one to the right. But those are good resources. Yeah. I think to go back to what Victoria asked about and Jeremy answered, I think that, you know, in the education world, there's something called cognitive load that we deal with, that we think about, like basically the weight of which your brain has to lift in order to learn, or in the learning environment, like how much thinking, how much attending to, how much are we asking people to do. And so school at St. Anne's, we ask a lot of our kids and of our parents, but a lot of our kids. And then you add the complexities of the current situation, and it's not one level, right? It's not just being home. It's not just distance learning. It's not just the kind of the uncertainties of what will be next. And it's not just the scary parts of COVID-13. It's not just our family members that are affected by it. It's not just how this changes our family dynamics because we're all together. Like, I've just named 6 things, and all those are layered on top of each other and are constantly changing. And our kids are we're dealing with all those, and we're adults and have different coping strategies. The kids are dealing with all of those too. So I want to echo what Jeremy said. I mean, we're going to meet, I think I say this at least once a day out loud here, but that we're going to meet kids where they are. We're going to continue to challenge. You know, it's a fine line with middle schoolers. You don't expect anything of them, and then they think that you think they can't do anything. But then if you expect too much of them, especially in a circumstance like this, then they start to see themselves as less than. So we're walking a really fine line, and so are you as parents along while we're doing this. But have no fear that whatever our new normal is that we return to, we're going to meet kids where they are, just like we are now. It'll just look differently, and whether that's 3 months from now or 6 months from now, I can always argue that 6 months from now, they will actually be quicker at whatever we were going to ask them to do 6 months ago, because they've matured, they have new experiences, they have a different outlook on things, and they also know how to work with people differently because they're 6 months more mature and 6 months more experienced. So we're keeping that in mind all the time. Go ahead, Barry.
One last thing I wanted to say was, we also have an opportunity in real time to do something that we don't always do with each other or do with our kids. I mean, I have always said, and I challenged my father on this, tell me about times when you had to struggle, or tell me about times when things didn't go well and how you made it through it. What did you do? Because our kids can see that we're not perfect. And so right now, you know, there can be a day when I'm just frustrated and I've got something bothering me, and I've got to be able to take a step back from that and be able to say to my son, well, you know what? This has just been a frustrating day. And I hope I'm not directing my frustration at you by telling you to do more of this or more of that. I mean, I just think that there's so much learning in this for all of us. And, you know when I realized that my father realized that he wasn't perfect and could say that to me, it took a lot of pressure off of me. It made me realize that, okay, I can get some things wrong and I'm still going to be okay. I just have to learn how to, how to manage and how to come back from that. And I think that this is a situation that we've never been in before. And I think it's helpful for our kids and our families to know that, this is new and we're going to work at this together, and there are going to be parts of it that aren't going to look pretty, and there are going to be parts of it that are going to be great. But at the end, we're going to come out better because of the things that we've had to deal with. And so that's the last thing I wanted to share.
Right. Okay. If we don't have any other things else to share, I'll leave with this, is that the other day I said to teachers, I'm going to get you all capes, because all of you have developed all these new superpowers that you have in your tool belt. And I would say the same thing to parents. It just adds on to what Barry just said. I mean, we're gaining, whether we want them or not, well, maybe we wanted them, but maybe not this way. They're really good things that we're gaining. So, we still have lots of things in support place. Please reach out to me. You can reach out to Lisa Bloomfield, who wasn't able to be here this morning. Barry's always available. Any of your teachers or your advisors, you're doing a good job with that already. Thank you to those that have reached out with questions, with also, oh, you are Lisa. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that. I've scanned the list 14 times. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa Bloomfield is available. But thank you to those who have sent us questions, sent us constructive criticism, sent us kudos for our teachers, because they are working really, really hard. And I want to thank our speakers today, Tiffany and Lori and Will and Jeremy. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and your willingness to share. Yeah, appreciate it. So, all right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks a lot for being here, everyone.
Jill, can you do me a favor and put the link to the lower school?